I said that I didn't want to unpack your childhood, but I do have to take a quick look. So let's go and take a quick look at some of the ways we've created this identity that we have now. So I call this through a filter of my past. Many people carry wounds from childhood. Most therapy you'll find wounded child, adaptive adult. They didn't love me enough. Well, existence is identity. Finding out where I fit in this world and who I am, that's identity. And I want you to know it's completely okay for you to outgrow your parents. It's okay for you to financially exceed your parents. It's okay for you to spiritually, emotionally exceed them. And you actually have the power to not only change your life, you have the power to also change theirs. And I know that we think our parents have so much power over us, but you're an adult now. And if they did a shitty job of it, then it's your turn. And they're not going to come back and make it right. They did their best with what they had at the time. This was not your fault. You were a child. A whole lot of old programming. Is it even yours? That's the first question you have to ask. Think of a shame you carry. Think of the words around the shame that you carry. Did everyone get a good one pop up? Whose voice is that? It's not yours. You thought of someone else's voice. And whoever gave you that shame, whoever put that, I call it a shame sticker, but it's a tattoo. Shame's, you got to get that laser removed, You don't just peel that off. So how does this affect you all these years later? You're remembering it right now. You're feeling shame. Shame is so easy to throw at people. And when you throw shame, it's yours. Okay, so when you're throwing shame at people, you're throwing your shame out there. Everyone's going to see it. But sadly, it sticks, because shame is way too close to rejection. And shame is I'm a bad person. And maybe we hold the shame because somewhere inside we think we're bad people. Mostly it's not even yours. It's inherited. You grew up with it, so you believe that it's yours, or worse. You might actually believe it's your fault because the parent might have told you that, and it's not. So now that we're adults and we can unpack our wounded child and be adaptive adults and be our own powerful adults and our own parents, you don't have to look far to see. Just look back at your upbringing, look at your social curators, think about it. Where does this exceptional body image you have come from? Where does your current money situation, current money mindset come from? Think about it. It comes from one of those curators. Where does this guilt and shame come from? One of those curators. Where does this worthlessness come from? One of those curators. If you had no example of self-care, how would you know? If you had no example of adults processing their emotions in a healthy, loving way, how could you? If you had a parent that was unlived, nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of a parent. Carl Jung. There is a perception that families, parents, or any social curators that raises a child should come with a certain amount of unconditional love. But wait, what's unconditional love? Unconditional love is nothing you do changes the way I feel. Look at your babies in your mind. Go, think that in your head. Nothing you do will change the way that I feel. Do you feel that way about your babies? Yeah, they're not adults yet. So that's easy to say to a baby, right? But we hate what we fear. We attract what we fear. We attract what we fear so fast because what we fear holds our greatest lesson. And if your spouse, partner, friend, family member did something you fear with your non-acceptance is conditional love. As soon as you don't accept something about one of those people, your love is now conditional. Conditional love is, I love you, but I just don't accept this thing about you. Okay, that's conditional. And that says, I'm good. I know you're good, so why don't you just fix this one thing and then we're both good. and also have a whole lot of shame. We were taught as children, especially girls, as women, to say nothing. The same way we stop little boys from crying, we watch our mothers go without, we watch them over-support, over-help, support endlessly, people-pleasing, giving away another piece of themselves every day and not honouring their wants or desires. What happens when that's not joyful? You know, what happens when this becomes resentment? Oh, but you don't resent your children, do you? Because that would be bad and wrong. So you just start to feel sad and less and without and unseen and not good enough. And for those of you looking at a parent saying, I could have been so much more if you had loved me more, I know there is a parent that is saying, what about me? What about what I want? Oh man, mummy and daddy guilt, it's a real thing. So challenge this idea internally, because your growth will not stunt your children. It will elevate them. I know you want the best for your children, so do not let yourself build their dreams, guys. It doesn't work that way. Show them how to build yours. Stop acting like your children will become any more than what you have allowed for yourself. I love throwing that dagger because it hits straight to the chest and I can feel it just goes in so deep, and I don't have children. So I just feel so good about that in that moment. I'm sorry, I know, it's a hard one. But if you hold to that, if you really sit in that quote, stop acting like your children will be more than what you've allowed for yourself, you start allowing a lot more for yourself. You know, I always say the sheer volume of suffering on this planet, children, animals, it's unthinkable. And it is actually unthinkable. You cannot bring it into your body. You know, famine, poverty, it's overwhelming, violence. You actually cannot bring it into your body. And the reason you can't is because you can't change it. You can only change yourself, and therefore we change everything around us. You can only change you. So which parent did you crave attention from? We call this the crave parent. Check in on your crave parent. It was the parent that you communicated the least amount of love with. Did you emulate a pattern or an illness? Or maybe a habit that your crave parent had? Check it out. Because as children, we want to be just like the person we want to love us. We want to be just like them so that they love us more. And sometimes we inherit the most incredible things from our crave parent. Do you struggle with this behavior today as an adult? Does it mirror another addiction? They drink, you eat. Same pattern, different vice. Did they struggle with your behavior? Did it trigger them? That's when you really know you're operating with a crave parent. You're just adapting behaviors that are not yours to fit in. It's incredible, and it's worth working on if you find that you've got a really deep connection there. The parent you emulate, the binge eater, the drinker, the gambler, the cheater, the spender, the illness, the addiction, is this even your pattern? So my dad was my crave parent, and my dad was a great dad, but we had a little bit of a communication around love, which I'll tell you about. But he was definitely my crave parent, and I definitely picked up all of his habits. But we're grown ups now. And now it's time to take control of our money management, our attraction and sustainability. It's time to let go of mum and dad being the bank. That's the first one. And the controller of our thoughts and emotions, and the controller of our wallet. And maybe you feel out of control around money because your parents really had no control around money. Think of that. If you grew up in a house where money was scarce and one parent was a spender and one was a saver, and there was always going to be friction around money, also check your association with your crave parent that you've not created exactly the same situation for yourself, because that's how we do it. Check in with your love language. After my father died, I realized his love language was quality time, and mine is touch and words. He was not touchy or verbally loving, but he was towards my mum. So I was really confused about this for years, because my father wouldn't hug me. And it wasn't until I was in my mid to late 30s, mid 30s, and my best friend and I were living together, and my mum and dad were on their way over. And I said, Ruby's like a sibling to me. So my parents treat Ruby like a sibling. And I said, Ruby, I need you to do something for me. Mum and Dad are going to come. Dad's going to come down the path and he sidesteps me. No, Mum comes first. She's going to step into my hug like this, and Dad's going to sidestep and walk past. But this time, I want you to do something for me. I want you to sidestep to the left, and I want you to grab my mum. And Ruby goes, okay. Ruby's a hugger, so she's all about it. So I go, I'm going to cut my dad off, and I'm going to stop him. I'm going to make him hug me. And Ruby was like, she knew this was big. So sure enough, Kath comes down. Andy does the sidestep. Ruby moves in quickly. I take a step to the left, and I just embrace my father. And he stands stiff in my arms. And I just held him really tight, and I squeezed him. And then I let him go. And then that day, he hugged every one of my family that walked in, including all the children, and then hugged us all goodbye. And he did that every day for the rest of his living days. By identifying my need to be loved by my dad, I gave him exactly what I wanted back. And in that moment, I healed him and I healed me. And he hugged me every single day for 13 more years. And 2 days before he died, he held me in his arms and he said, I love you, for the first time. For the first time. And then he was gone. And I had the power to love him the whole time. I had the power to show him how to demonstrate love to me and to demonstrate love to him. I healed him, and that healed me. And a lifetime of not feeling like I was enough for my father was gone, and he was gone 2 days later, gone. And when people ask you what is grief, it is the most amount of shock you will ever experience, because the person you love is never coming back in this room ever again. And it is the biggest shock. And I'm so glad that I worked through my dad's stuff, because he left before he left. Because my greatest regret with my dad and all he taught me, now that I look back at how our life together was, I wish I had loved him more. I wish I could have let him love me more. I thought for a long time that my father didn't love me enough, but that I was not enough. But he really tried with what he had, And I could not receive his love because it was never enough. It was never enough because I wanted him to be more. And my relationship with my father was not abusive at all. I simply struggled to just communicate love with him until the later years, and look what I missed out on. If your wounds from childhood are still being worked through, thank you, Nikki, and yes, to a child, abuse is trauma. Okay, divorce is trauma to a child. Being shamed to a child is trauma. Being betrayed and abandoned is trauma. Go and work through your feelings of abandonment, betrayal, and shame. Work through them. It's very powerful. Start with the facts. I carry so much pain from childhood. I was not loved enough. Reframe it. Reframe it. I was raised by parents or social curators that did not know how to love themselves. They struggled to demonstrate or communicate love. I had to learn how to love myself. You are not broken. You are not unlovable. You might be acting like you are, but that's not who you are. Overcoming your story, this identity, to reframe this old narrative and see yourself in a new light is why we're here. It's about taking control of how you process your emotion and your own self-perception, changing the narrative and shining love and light in all of your dark places. So that's as far as I want to look into our childhood. Because remember that as you move forward into the now, as you bring healing and as you bring creation into your now, you will let go of these old stories. They don't change who you are. They keep coming up along all day. They'll keep coming up. But if there's trauma there, you need to go and work through it. If you are waking up in yesterday's emotions, you need to deal with that immediately. If you are waking up in last year's emotions, you need to deal with that immediately. If you are waking up in 20 years ago emotions, oh my goodness, we need to save you now. That's not living. It's about opening our hearts to ourselves, setting powerful life goals with intense love to gain confidence and clarity on your path forward. Make no mistake about it, you are here to create yourself. I created many sub-personas that I hated as I was unfolding, but when I started to be fully myself and feel my value and I pushed into that, that's how I changed my story, and that's how I created my life.